You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. LSU football is back on the practice field today. We, to start the show, went through some sort of a practice recap, some things that stood out. Would always recommend you can go back and listen to that on demand. We literally started the show, so go to AFR on demand or via your favorite podcast app to search After Further Review or the Watch 104.5 ESPN YouTube channel. But Brian Kelly, when he met with reporters after Tuesday's practice, was also asked about the transfer portal. So we all know there's a transfer portal window which opens up after the regular season, and you see this big wave of transfers after the college football season. There's a second portal window which is set to open up later this week. And Brian Kelly was asked about it and asked really if his team still has other needs in the transfer portal right now. He gave a long, detailed answer, so I want you to hear it, and then we're going to kind of break it apart piece by piece. Here's what Brian Kelly said about the portal.
I still think that there's a couple of needs on defense, and, I think we're still, maybe interested on the offensive line. I think there's still an interest to add to our offense. But I would say that we're guarded at this period of time as to somebody that's going to make a difference in an LSU football lineup. These are probably going to be guys that can add depth to what you're doing. I don't think you can go out there swinging for, a starter that's going to come in and change the trajectory of your starting lineup. These are guys that can contribute and be part of your depth. And I think that that's kind of what we're looking at.
Okay. So the portal opens again on April 15th, and it's open for 2 weeks. It runs through April 15th through the end of the month on April the 30th. Remember, when the portal window is open, that's the opportunity for players to enter the portal, okay? But you can commit to a school at any time. You don't have to commit just during a portal window. That's just when players are eligible to enter, to put their name in the portal. So that starts on the 15th, so that's Saturday the 15th. So the portal window is going to be open before LSU finishes spring football. They'll finish spring next Saturday with the spring game, a week from Saturday on April 22nd. So oddly, you may actually end up having players enter the transfer portal while spring football is still going on. We'll see. But what Brian Kelly said there, he was still looking for players on defense, depth on the offensive line, and maybe some offensive players as well. Said we're really looking for guys that'll give us depth right now, not necessarily players that are going to jump in and be starters. It is really impossible. It is impossible to know who LSU could target in the portal until you know who is in the portal. The most notable portal addition LSU has ever made is the greatest player in the history of the program, Joe Burrow. LSU didn't add Joe Burrow until after spring football, into that second portal window when, I guess the portal wasn't really even a thing right there. Burrow was a grad transfer at the time, so he was able to get immediate eligibility. But Burrow didn't announce he was leaving Ohio State until after spring football. LSU could have never targeted or known they were going to target Joe Burrow or target a quarterback until Burrow was in the portal, and they were like, okay, let's go get Burrow. Let's make our play for Joe Burrow. Because remember, at the time, LSU had Miles Brennan coming off his freshman season. They had, you had Justin McMillan and Lowell Narcisse as well. So you had 3 scholarship quarterbacks. Now, they didn't sign a freshman quarterback coming in at that point, but you had 3 scholarship quarterbacks. You didn't need a quarterback. Like, numbers-wise, you didn't need to go get a quarterback if there wasn't one there. Well, Burrow entered the portal, and you realize, man, It's an opportunity to get better at the most important position. Let's go make our pitch. And we know how it all played out. So again, a year ago, LSU in the second portal window added 7 banks from Ohio State. Well, you could have been content with the cornerbacks that you had. You added a bunch of them. But when 7 banks went into the portal, you go make your play for them. So you don't know necessarily who or what position specifically you're targeting until you know who's in the portal. There might be a starting caliber player that enters the portal that you can go make a play for that can be a starting player for you. I'll tell you this. For me, I think there's 3 positions. And I'm not just going to say like Brian Kelly said, with some guys on defense, maybe offensive line, offensive players. I'm going to be more specific. Number 1 is a veteran tight end. And this is an enormous need, okay? LSU just has never really replenished there. Now, they did it in the freshman ranks with the freshman signing class. You've got Mac Markway coming in. You've got Kamorian Pimpton coming in as well. So you've got guys at tight end who are joining your program. You signed 4. You have 4 freshmen coming in. And but Mason Taylor is your only experienced tight end. And while he had a great freshman season, he's still just a true sophomore. Now we're hoping you'll continue to see the growth there throughout his career. But after Mason Taylor, you don't have any experience at tight end, and you don't have a traditional attached tight end, which is kind of what we've seen from Brian Kelly throughout the year. So if there's a possibility of adding a veteran tight end, you do it. That's 1. 2 is something we've talked about quite a lot here, and that's depth on the offensive line. Tigers lost about a half dozen offensive linemen in the transfer portal. You've signed a big offensive line class, and there's guys coming in that you feel really good about, namely Zalance Hurd. And you return 5 starters, and really, if you include Marlon Martinez, 6 guys that played a lot of football for you, and 6 guys that you feel really good about going into this season. The problem is, after those 6, there's no experience at all. Now you're bringing in Mason Lunsford, the transfer from Maryland, who's played a lot of football, and that adds some veteran depth and maybe even a guy that can compete for a starting job at one of the guard spots. We'll see. So those 7 you feel good about, but after that, it's all freshmen. And maybe Lunsford's great and Lance Hurd is awesome, and you don't even worry about it beyond that because all your depth is really good, but you don't know that. So if you have the opportunity, listen, I would say actions speak louder than words, the old adage. It's very true. LSU went and tried to sign Jake Renfro, the center from Cincinnati, who ultimately committed to and signed with Wisconsin. They tried to sign Ja'Kai Clark, the center from the University of Miami, who ultimately picked SMU. They tried to go sign 2 centers in this portal window. So if another program has a guy where there's a scenario where you have a guy that's played a lot of football that for whatever reason jumps in the transfer portal, you got to consider it. And that could be a very real possibility. The third I'll tell you is safety. And I am going to be very interested to watch the safety position. I think LSU, and the attention is going to be on cornerback, and I understand why. You got a lot of talented guys like Deuce Chestnut and J.K. Johnson and Denver Harris and Zy Alexander, and you brought in some young guys, and you feel good about the numbers and the talent that you have there. But for me, and I understand why there's interest in who's going to win those jobs, because it's just flashier. Safety for me is the biggest question. Joe Fouché and Jay Ward were really good for you a year ago. And them being so solid there allowed Greg Brooks to play nickel, where he was your best option at nickel. Well, with Ward and Fouché gone, Greg Brooks, who has been in a walking boot, and they expect him to be back at some point running around a little bit, but really with Greg Brooks and then Major Burns, who they're putting on the shelf for the rest of spring, if those are your starting safeties, that leaves a liability at nickel where Greg Brooks had a career season. If you have the option in the transfer portal to add a starting safety, you have to do it. Major Burns has not stayed healthy during any of his college seasons. In 2020, as a freshman at Georgia, 21, he had the foot injury here at LSU, and then last year he had the neck injury. So you hope he stays healthy, and if he does, he could be a really good player, but he hasn't done that in his career. And Greg Brooks, I think, is a better option for you at nickel than at deep safety. So if you have an option in the portal to add a starting caliber safety, I think you do it because that gives you so much more veteran option there at that position. Maybe Javen Toviano, the freshman, emerges and has a great year. maybe a guy like Matthew Langlois or Jordan Allen, who you signed a year ago, step up and they give you great depth and reps at safety. Maybe. But why lean on a maybe if, bold underscore, italics, if a starting caliber player with a ton of experience and major college experience is available? You go get that player. So those are 3 spots that I would look at. Veteran tight end, depth on the offensive line, and safety. If you have players emerge out of the transfer portal at those positions, if you're LSU, I think that's where you're looking here in this portal cycle. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.